Hello, listeners. I'm Timstradamus, and I'm hoping you're having a good start to your week. With me, as always, is my talented and beautiful co-hostess, Voyse.
Good morning, Timstradamus, and welcome to all of our listeners. We've had a very crazy week with the weather, haven't we?
I would say, yeah.
A lot of rain, quite unexpected for us, but I've been enjoying it.
It's been fantastic.
I know your birthday's coming up, Timstradamus. Getting that 571 years old, huh?
Yep.
Well, I've got a joke for you with the weather and your birthday in mind. Why was the cake wet?
Why was the cake wet? It better not be because someone dropped my cake and now I'm crying on it.
Oh, no. Well, no. It's actually because it got sprinkled.
Okay, I'll take that one. It's better than it dropping on the floor.
I know that bothers you when it comes to AFE videos.
People love to laugh at it, but I will sit there stern-faced and just, why?
Life advice, don't drop the cake.
Yep. For new listeners, Voyse and I enjoy reading and talking about stories from the internet that are interesting, funny, and dramatic. Because of our love of stories, we've come together and created this channel to share with you those experiences.
And hopefully give you some food for thought.
So, Voyse,
So, Timstradamus,
it looks like we have some new shout-outs to make.
we do. We have 2 new Patreons. Welcome to the Tea Club, Sleepy Manatee and Natasha Lovato.
That is a dope name, both of them. I want to be a sleepy manatee.
And I want to sound as lovely as Natasha Lovato.
Bloop is what I think a manatee says. Let's see, Voyse. What have you brewed for me this morning?
This morning, I brewed for you another healthy tea.
Mm-hmm.
It has stinging nettle, orange peel, and raspberry bits. I'm hoping that the citrus from the peel and the raspberry bits tartness will cut into the lemongrass type taste that is the stinging nettle.
This is a 10 out of 10, seriously.
Yes?
Yes.
Oh my goodness. Thank goodness.
That's what I'm saying. You said healthy, and I'm like, oh no. Last week's healthy was healthy.
So I've been actually trying to bring stinging nettle into the teas simply because one of our listeners actually brought it into the comments section, and it reminded me of how healthy stinging nettle is for you. It's actually lowers blood pressure for a lot of individuals, which is why it's a warning for elderly, because it can lower their blood pressure in bad ways if you're not careful. But it's got anti-inflammatory, it helps with your joints, it helps with eczema and any kind of like dermatitis issues that you might have. So actually incorporating it into the diet is, I think, really good for people.
Well, that thing is fantastic. I love the raspberries.
I was hoping, like I said, because stinging nettle tastes very similar to green tea. And I know you're not a fan of green tea, but I was just thinking if I could cut a little into that grassy taste and give you more of the fruit and citrus, it would be able to mask it and you'd get the health benefits.
That's my favorite drink so far this year.
Yes! Well, while you enjoy your morning cup of brew, why don't we go ahead and delve into these stories? For any listeners wanting to follow along, all story links are in the description below. For our first story, am I the a-hole for wanting my fiancé to give me a heads up? My fiancé and I are on a work trip for him, but the company allows your significant other to travel as well, expenses paid and everything. Since the trip is 9 days, but only 3 are related to work itself. Today was the first day of work-related activities and was an early day for him. I, personally, have had an awful time trying to get sleep while traveling this week, since we were all up for 36 hours in order to catch our flight and get settled in. My fiancé woke up to get ready this morning, and without warning, turned on the overhead light. I was peeved, but didn't say anything until he went to get ready in the bathroom with the light still on. We have always tried to be considerate of one another when getting ready in the mornings, so this caught me off guard. At home, sometimes I'm up first, and sometimes he is, but regardless, we always do our best to not wake one another. When I realized he was leaving the room, I asked him, "Are you really going to keep the lights on?" Which I know could have been phrased nicer, but I was whiny more than mad. He replied with a very passive-aggressive, "I'm sorry that I'm doing the thing we actually came here to do," which left me stunned because he usually doesn't get mad so quick. but he and I are both not morning people, so I just left it. When he came back from the bathroom, which connects off our bedroom, I told him my issue isn't with you getting ready. It's that you didn't even warn me that you were turning the lights on. And he said that his goal was not to wake me up at all. So I said, there is no way that light wasn't going to wake me up. You could have at least given me a heads up. He ended up getting more upset and said he wasn't going to continue this conversation. For the record, we have a lamp in our room. Last night, I wanted to do a little reading before bed while he was going to sleep. So I asked him, is this too bright? Would you like me to turn this off? And he kindly responded that it was totally fine. And he rolled over and fell asleep, no problem. So there was an alternative option for lighting that wouldn't have been as bright. But he also tried to tell me that the lamp is brighter than the overhead light, which is just indisputably wrong. But I didn't push back on that either. I have disordered sleep, where I have a hard time falling asleep before 6 to 7 a.m. lately. And with traveling, I have been able to fall asleep earlier, but we have also had early mornings every day since arriving, so I'm still behind on sleep. And he knew I was looking forward to sleeping in today, but I can't fall back asleep from being woken up at 6:30 a.m. Am I the a-hole for getting upset that he turned the lights on without warning me and that he went straight for the overhead light instead of the lamp? I know this seems petty, and we usually don't have issues like this, but I want to know if I am wrong since it is his trip. I get that I'm his +1 for this, but does that negate my feeling/need to sleep?
So this is a story I think maybe a lot of couples can identify with, especially when you're talking about work-related trips where you do have a +1. Voyse and I have done those. They're very fun, as long as you plan accordingly.
Oh, yes.
Now, may I ask, do they give their ages?
No, but they did have some comments on the activities that apparently is going on throughout this work event for her husband. And a lot of it seemed to be including the significant others.
Oh, that's fun.
It is.
So both her and her husband, to get to their destination for this work week, I guess they ended up not sleeping for 36 hours straight to make sure they made all the flights and everything was where it needed to be when it needed to be there.
Correct. If anything, I probably imagine cat naps along the way, but nothing that is substantial that they would need.
Okay. So they're both at the same level of sleep deprivation. That's pretty difficult, especially when you're getting there. And I'm guessing when they got there, the very next day, he had to go to work, is what it sounds like to me. There was no decompression day for them to get the jet lag. And sometimes people can deal with jet lag well beyond the first day. Just depends on who you are. But I think for me, I got to say, I don't believe there are a-holes. I understand that maybe what they said to each other wasn't great, but on a scale, this isn't that bad. They were both tired. I hear that they're very respectful towards each other on a normal basis. It sounds like a healthy relationship. It just sounds like the sleep deprivation got to them. And that happens for everyone. I think most people can feel a little more grumpy when they don't get enough sleep. But hopefully they had a good rest of their trip and didn't let that get to them. I understand, though, not having enough sleep sucks, but Voyse and I have done those trips. We just made sure to plan way ahead and figure out, because there is a lot that goes into these things. The flights, if you have to get a connecting, the hotels. Maybe this was their first time, and so maybe they planned poorly, because 36 seems like a lot. But I don't know where they're at and where they're going. Maybe they're doing an international flight. Maybe that's why it was so long. I'm guessing that's probably what this was.
I'm assuming it was that. I know it also depends on the person. I know I'm the person that would more than likely fall asleep on your shoulder, Timstradamus, while we're traveling. Oh, she loves doing that. But you're the person that you have a very tough time sleeping in public, where you feel you have to be more alert.
I'm just the watchdog. But yeah, to sum this up, I really don't believe there are a-holes in this story. It just sounds like sleep got to them.
Well, it really was a mixed bag here when it came to the consensus. I feel like it leaned a little bit more towards not the a-holes and no a-holes here than it did the you're the a-hole. But let me go ahead and break it down. For the individuals that put not the a-hole, a lot of them see it how you see it, Timstradamus. And even the no a-holes here. You're just experiencing jet lag. You are two very well-meaning people. And this is just an unfortunate series of events where you're tired and there's a lot of emotions in play. And don't hit yourselves too hard. As long as you're making it aware to each other that you're tired and be understanding, it's not, as you would say, hitting hard on the Richter scale of a-holedom. So for the individuals that we're calling our OP the a-hole, their reasonings felt, at least for me, kind of shallow. It was, this is his work trip. And that's kind of the gist of the feel of why it is.
So wait, it's his work trip, so you should just deal with mistreatment. Interesting. It wasn't even a mistreatment, though, in my mind, because I'm certain had he really thought about it and been in the right of mind, right? We're talking about people who need more sleep. I'm doubting that he would have gone out of his way to wake his wife up based off of her description of their relationship.
Correct.
So that's kind of weird that they would just go deal with being uncomfortable or woken up. No, don't deal, but definitely be more understanding of each other.
Now, our OP did offer a little update, so let me go ahead and read that out loud. For one, I would have added more context, but there is a character limit on these posts. The work trip is a reunion, so while there are classes and such to learn about goals and whatever, it's mostly to mingle with others within the company, as well as the headquarter people behind the scenes, as well as to try new products, meet different suppliers, and the second day is a half day. Then the third day is a party where the significant others are allowed to join again. There are enough people that made some assumptions about it and had questions that I thought it'd be good for me to add that bit in. I have apologized to my fiancé, which he accepted. There's definitely a mixed bag of responses and a lot of assumptions thrown in about me or my relationship, but overwhelmingly it was determined that I was the a-hole and I accept said judgment. My fiancé and I typically handle our disputes very well and in a mature us versus the problem way, but I'm autistic and genuinely had a hard time understanding if I was an a-hole or not, and my lack of sleep and grumpy mindset wasn't helping, which was also when I had typed these out. Thank you all for the input. Have a good one.
Yeah, it just sounds like they're going to learn how to travel together and be a little more accommodating towards each other. I still feel the way I do, though. I don't think there are a-holes here.
I agree with you on that. Well, let's go to our next story and see what you think about a daughter's disrespect in public. Am I the a-hole for not getting my daughter a car after she publicly disrespected me? So last week, me, my wife, and 2 kids went out to the zoo for my daughter's 23rd birthday. We were having a great time. While leaving an enclosure, some woman sort of cut us off and pushed in front of us to get out first. She didn't actually touch us, and it wasn't that big a deal, but was a little obnoxious, and I said, "There's no need to push ahead, love." She responded with something like, "How did I push ahead? It's not like there's a queue." I just tutted and thought, whatever, not worth it. But then some giant guy, who was apparently her son, I didn't realize this because they looked very different, i.e., she was white, he was mixed, not that it matters, said to her, "What, does someone have a problem, Mum?" And she pointed me out. Her son then turned around and started aggressively antagonizing me for no reason, telling me to keep my comments to myself, calling me a bitch, a Karen, and he kept calling me tiny, saying I had little man syndrome, just really off-the-wall stuff for what I thought was a benign comment. Then, for some reason, my daughter, 22 female, felt the need to take up for this guy and start saying stuff like, "Why are you like this? Why do you feel the need to say something?" And then started apologizing to the guy and agreed with him that I'm a Karen. I was really taken aback by this. Then the guy asks how old she is, and she tells him, and he asks for her number, and she gives it to him. He hands his phone over to her, and she types in her number. Whole time this guy is staring at me with a shit-eating grin on his face. When my daughter comes back over to us, I ask her, "What the hell was that?" And she just says, "What? He's cute. And you need to be put in your place every once in a while." I said, since that's what she thinks, she can buy her own car for her birthday. She clearly thought I wasn't serious, because when she asked if we can look at cars, and I told her she can look herself, because I'm still not paying for it. This has divided my house, with my son taking my side, saying she was out of line, and my wife saying it's not worth ruining my relationship with her over. I feel like if not getting her a car as punishment is enough to ruin her relationship with me, then I probably spoiled her too much anyway. She already has a car that I bought her 2 years ago, which works fine, so it's not like I'm exactly depriving her. Am I the a-hole? I am at work on my lunch break right now, so I can't really reply. I have skimmed the comments and will address a few things I feel relevant. 1. The car I bought her 2 years ago was a runaround Fiat 500 secondhand. It is in fine shape, but not exactly the nicest car. I had promised my daughter an Audi, as my son is going to be traveling for his 21st birthday, which I am paying for. The car she wanted was roughly the same cost. 2. She doesn't live at home. She hasn't since she moved out for uni at 18. 3. I don't feel like I'm a Karen, but I'm not shy to speak up/complain if I feel I must. If people are rude or something is not up to my standard, I will happily say something. 4. I realistically couldn't beat up the 6'4" or whatever 20-something-year-old mouthing off at me. I am 47 years old and have worked an office job for the last 20 to 30 years and have a bad back. Am I the a-hole?
Were people telling him that he could have just taken the guy he was fighting with in public?
Sounds like it.
What terrible advice. Even, let's say for sake of argument, even if you could, the ramifications for you putting your hands on someone else, normally, if you're the person that starts that stuff, you're the one being carted off. So even if you could take him, you're putting your livelihood and everything you've worked for at risk. So let's fight the entitlement problem that we have in this story. Because it sounds like the daughter is suffering from it pretty badly. I don't believe our OP is the a-hole for not wanting to purchase his daughter a car after what she did to him in public. They're at the zoo. It's her 23rd birthday. He's walking, and apparently someone cuts in front of him at an exhibit, I guess.
Supposedly cuts in front of him. The woman says there's no queue, so there's no cutting in front of anybody.
And he goes ahead and lets us know that when something happens to him in public, he's not afraid to let people know. Now, I don't know what degree he does this at. That's the only thing I question here is the daughter was so easily and readily wanting to agree with other people's opinions about her father. Without any hesitation, jumped on and said, "Why do you always do this?"
As if he's got a record of this?
And that's where my only hesitation with it, for him anyway, is maybe there are other things that had happened, and this is just the first time someone was able to hold him to his words. I don't know. Maybe that's going too far on my end because we don't know all the facts about other circumstances that have happened. But based off just this one, he didn't go about it in a rude way, I don't believe. It sounds like this is happening in another part of the world, maybe the UK. He says love, and there's a little different terminology going on.
Mom, that's used a lot in the UK versus in the US.
It doesn't sound like it was rude. I'm not certain what the 23-year-old was trying to get out outside of embarrassing and humiliating someone. But for his daughter to jump on board and then do the back and forth with the phone number, I would just say this. She picked a side. She didn't assess anything. Again, maybe I'm speaking out of turn because she knows her father. Maybe this has happened in other places before. But to have done it in that moment, on your birthday, with your family, does it get any more disrespectful? I don't think you owe anyone anything. And if your dad is a bad person, then hey, you know what? You reap what you sow. But I don't hear any of that in these details because unfortunately we're only getting it from OP. So in my mind, I don't believe you'd be the a-hole for not wanting to buy her a car. She is 23. You've already bought her a car. The only thing maybe would be he says that he promised her something.
He promised her the car.
And that might be your catch here, is because you promised her. And it depends on what promises mean to people. That would definitely be a conversation that you and your daughter need to have, because I don't know, does she respect you? That's really, are you just an ATM? Yeah, you're not the a-hole, OP.
Consensus on Reddit is that our OP is not the a-hole. Many Redditors were asking, why are you still purchasing stuff for your 23-year-old adult daughter? That's not something that should be on you, especially when you already helped her with a leg up and already purchased a car for her. And yes, a lot of individuals came out saying that our OP's daughter sounds extremely entitled. But, and I was really happy that you're astute on this, that you picked up why would the daughter side so quickly with essentially a stranger in bad-mouthing her father. So let me go ahead and read to you an update and see what you think about the situation after reading this. Update. So I got home about an hour ago and my wife called me into the room to talk. She gave me an ultimatum. She said I can either swallow my pride and buy my daughter the car, or she will buy the car out of her own money. My wife doesn't earn as much as me, but still has a well-paying job and can afford it. She said that everyone is sick of my attitude in public, that every time we go out, I get in some sort of altercation or disagreement with someone over some petty shit. I think this is a gross over-exaggeration, but my wife showed me texts from my daughter asking if she can go out with just my wife because I always do something to embarrass everyone. My wife refused and defended me, saying that's not true. And that's why when I got in that argument, my wife said nothing about my daughter's actions. She said she isn't going to punish my daughter because I can never keep my mouth shut, especially when my daughter said she didn't want me there because something like this would happen, and she defended me only to be made to look like a fool. She says that my daughter barely likes me as it is, and if I do this, I shouldn't be shocked when she stops talking to me completely. I asked my wife if all I am to my daughter is a piggy bank, and she told me to stop playing the victim. She said it's up to me what I do with my money, and my daughter will be getting the car one way or another, so I can either make her hate me for no reason, or I can swallow my pride and get her the car myself. Don't really know where to go from there.
See, that update added more paint to the canvas, though. He sounds like the hammer only seeing nails in life. I gotta say, that doesn't help him the way I think he thinks it helps. He might have a problem.
And a lot of Redditors also say the same. They're saying, now this is different from how you painted the picture before. If you're talking out over everything that you feel is a slight to you, then yes, you would be deemed an a-hole. This wasn't and doesn't sound like just a one-time event. And now, as you can hear it, when it comes to people's judgments, they're starting to flip because now they have more context. But he provided us with another update. So let me go ahead and read that and let's see what you think now. Sorry, I didn't really respond. A lot happened yesterday. After everything, I called my daughter over because I wanted to talk about everything. My wife said to just let it go, but clearly everyone had a problem with me that I didn't know about, so I wanted to get to the bottom of it. So I waited for my son to get home, and my daughter drove round a little later. We all sat down and decided to talk. I started by doing what many of you suggested and asked for actual examples, rather than just accepting their word for it. And honestly, a lot of it sounded ridiculous. The fact that I sent back a steak twice because both times it was undercooked, as if it's a crime to want a 180-pound steak cooked correctly. The fact that I argued with someone who sat in our assigned seats at a cinema, even though it was nearly empty. Again, as if it's a crime to want to sit in a seat I paid for when there's dozens of other places for these people to sit. And other equally silly things which I can't be bothered to get into and don't even really remember as a result of the insignificance of it. Despite me thinking that it was all ridiculous, I said I would do my best to be a meek pushover in public if that was the only way to get them to like me, and that I would get the car on one condition, that my daughter hadn't actually texted the guy who abused me. I asked to look at her messages, and she said not to even bother because she had texted him, and I didn't have the right to control who she talks to. I said that is true, but I do have the right to spend my money on whatever I want, and I'm not getting my daughter a car. She has one that works fine, and even if I am an ass in a situation where her family is getting threatened, she sided with the aggressor and then doubled down on that, and that is unforgivable. My daughter blew up at me and said I am a petty little pig-headed man with a Napoleon complex, and that all the money in the world hasn't stopped me from being a fucking loser. I said, oh yeah? Because the guy who screams at old men is such a winner. And she screamed at me that I'm not a victim. And then something about how cathartic it was to watch someone stand up to me. And that how the second he did, she watched me shrink back into the little bitch I'd always been growing up. That was the last straw. I told her to get out, but she doubled down and told me that my wife had told them about me being bullied growing up, and that was why I am the way I am. I saw my wife turn pale as a ghost at this comment. This is something I confided in her in private. Clearly, this is why my daughter stopped respecting me. Obviously, I wasn't cool enough for her or whatever. I was speechless, but my daughter carried on. She said, make a genuine promise to Jake he can still go to Cambodia and ask him what he really thinks. I just nodded. Her brother begged not to be put in the middle of this, but I insisted. All he said was, sometimes you can be a little much, Dad. My daughter called him a pussy and just walked out. My son ran off to his room and my wife drove off after our daughter. She didn't come back last night. I've not heard from my wife or daughter since. I've called out of work. My son left for university without saying a word to me. I've barely slept a wink. I can't believe it. I'm a cliché. A rich old man whose family hates him. If I was lost before, now I'm genuinely clueless about what I'm supposed to do.
What a rabbit hole we just went down. We just got to see OP's life just get completely turned upside down by his actions. And the inability to accept what he's been doing around and with his family. Now, he does get one thing wrong. The wife telling the kids why he is the way he is not the reason why they don't respect him anymore. That has nothing to do with this. I think he's misunderstanding that. They don't respect you because the way you treat other people outside of your home is heinous.
I have to say that there was a commenter who brought up, I think, a really good point. So they said the way that you're viewing interactions with people, where you pick and choose your battles and essentially are saying it that you're acting as a meek pushover, is very revealing. You don't have to react to every little thing, and it makes you sound like you do. Your behavior is immensely stressful for the people around you. Other commenters came out saying, if you have 3 people that are saying that there's a problem, you should probably take it to mind that there is a problem. Now, the way that the message was delivered sucks, yes. But that doesn't mean that there isn't some underlying problem that you shouldn't look into just because how they delivered it wasn't in the best way. Well, our OP gives us what he says is his final update. So let's go ahead and read that and see how you feel at the end of it. Everyone has been asking for an update, so here it is, though there isn't really much to tell. My daughter blocked me everywhere since she left. I did go to reach out, but saw she had blocked me. I haven't heard anything since. My wife is staying with her parents and is refusing to come home unless I agree to individual therapy and family therapy, which I'm still refusing because I feel it is a waste of time. I know myself and I know my mind. So what? I like to complain sometimes. That doesn't make me mentally ill. My son and I are probably the biggest update, I guess. We are falling out hard. He is blaming me for tearing the family apart by being stubborn. He says I drove my daughter away and I drove my wife away, and I'm going to drive him away too, unless I try to make it right with everyone. He is mainly mad at me for refusing my wife's demands to therapy. He is still living at home, as it is close to his university, but he says that if I'm not at least trying to make it right by the time he finishes, he will leave and not look back. It turns out the reason his sister called him a pussy is that he actually agrees with her more than he let on. He says that I'm a bully, that I bully and get condescending and rude to people in public, and then play the victim if anyone calls me out on it. He says I am rude to everyone, everywhere I go, and that I'm rude to everyone at home too. He says that I lord my money over people, and that if anyone disagrees with anything I do, I take it away. He says my daughter hasn't liked me since she was 16, and that she has always talked about escaping me. He said she never even expected me to actually go through with getting the car because she knew I'd snatch it away the first time she did something I didn't like. Apparently, the whole thing was a test. She had made it clear to everyone that if I did in fact snatch the car away at the last second, she planned to never speak to me again. My son knew this, My wife knew this. That's why my wife was so adamant on me getting the car for my daughter. That's why my daughter was so upset about me not getting it, because in her mind, that was me finally killing the relationship. He also told me that my wife has defended me for years and years, that she didn't betray my trust, but she told the story of my upbringing to try and stop him and his sister from hating me. He said my daughter has openly said she should leave me for years, and that my wife always told her off for that, but now I finally pushed her away too. He admitted he never thought she would ever actually leave me, but said he's proud of her for standing up to me finally. He also said he doesn't care if I take away his birthday trip, that he wants me to fix the family, and that is more important than some holiday. I've decided I'm not going to take away his holiday, as that would probably just give them even more ammo against me. But I'm also not doing therapy. They may need therapy. I don't. I am fine with who I am. I like myself, even if they don't. That's basically it.
Well, it sounds like he is going to stay where he's always been. Angry and now alone. That sucks, especially when you have other people in your life that are showing you where you've gone wrong. Hopefully the three of them will go to family therapy. You don't need your father to go to therapy. Work on your guys' relationship. The family isn't broken just because one person wants to be your father.
It's a sad, sad story. Well, let's go on to our next story and see what you think about this situation. Am I the a-hole for not wanting to have sex with my girlfriend anymore? Guys, despite all that, what am I reading? That's a legit problem I'm facing. My 21 male girlfriend, 21 female, and I have been dating for 5 months. Sex was weird. I thought maybe it was because we were a new couple and it was our first couple of sex together. But no. Do you know when the anime/manga Japanese porn thing where the girl acts like she doesn't like the sex and does the no thing? Yes, that's my girlfriend. When we have sex, I don't want to hear it's a no, but yes. I want yes, take that shirt off. I cringe every time she acts that way. It kills the mood. We talked about this. She acted like, I don't know what you're talking about. Jesus Christ, for God's sake, please no. Everything is fine and amazing except the sex. I want her to show me that she enjoys it. I want her to tell me what's on her mind. She doesn't touch me. I want her to touch my chest, back, ass, whatever. Just touch me. I don't want her to just lie down and moan. That's not what fabulous sex is. I stopped initiating sex. She got frustrated and said that I was withholding sex for no reason. Even when she tried to initiate sex, I declined, because sex isn't good when one partner acts like they don't want it. I have an older friend, Wello, 29 female. Yeah, that's her name. She cringed even more than I did. She didn't know what to say because she didn't know anyone like that. And she never was like that. None of her boyfriends were like that. My girlfriend is getting frustrated a lot, but I don't want to have sex when she's acting that way. We are 21, not 16. Smack my head. Am I the a-hole?
I'm going to smack my head for you. I'm not really familiar with what he described. This whole no thing?
It's the no means yes, where you're like in the middle of intimacy and she goes, oh no, don't do that.
Okay.
And then apparently you're supposed to push past those boundaries weirdly because you know she means secretly yes.
We've not done that before, and I have never been exposed to that with other people.
Neither have I. And that's because you and I have clear communication with what we want.
Yeah, but it sounds like he's tried that though, right? He said, hey, look, this isn't for me.
And she goes, I don't know what you're talking about, finger touch.
I'm really not into that culture, I guess. And it does sound like you have a problem with it. And it's not something that you're comfortable with. Your partner is unwilling to see that. You've tried, and I can appreciate that. And if that's something you can't work through, and she's unwilling to see that there's a problem, it might be time for you to move on. Not everyone is for everyone. I just hope that your partner can see that that's what she's doing to you. But it sounds like she's unwilling to. And if she's going to play it like she doesn't understand what's going on, then she can do that with someone else. But you shouldn't have to feel uncomfortable while you're having sex with your partner. That shouldn't be a part of the equation. Yes, try things out It's always fun to try new things, but if it makes the other partner uncomfortable, like truly uncomfortable, I'm not talking about like, oh, initially I may have seen this and I'm uncomfortable with it, but
Or maybe you're just a little awkward.
yeah, it's the first time doing it. But if they're truly uncomfortable with something, that needs to be where you stop as a partner and reassess what's happening. But you're not the a-hole OP.
Well, the consensus on Reddit is that our OP is not the a-hole. In fact, many Redditors came out and said maybe you need to have another conversation, OP. Sit your girlfriend down and tell her that this is a deal breaker for the relationship and that her acting like this is a huge turnoff. Now, they have only been together for 5 months, so this is very early on. Redditors were curious about how the conversation went. And our OP did respond and say, yeah, we did, but it didn't go anywhere. I don't know if a second discussion will be productive or not. The first one wasn't, and not having sex only made her frustrated. To be honest, a breakup might be the last option, but man, this will be a weird reason for breaking up.
No, it's not. There are plenty of people who have that type of issue with their partners. Not wanting to have sex or wanting to have too much of it can be an issue. You have to find your rhythm. So that's definitely not a weird one. Yeah, maybe I guess what we're mounting this is to the ooh-woo thing. But that is definitely a common thing. You have to find what works for both of you and what you're comfortable with. But if you're already seeing those things and she's unwilling to talk to you about it, yeah, what's the point?
I can understand what is it? I think it's like the dead fish syndrome, where as a woman or maybe as a man, you just lay there and don't do anything. You don't feel that loving interaction when you're being intimate with your partner.
You have to talk with each other about what it is you do and don't like and see if you can grow from there. But if you're unwilling to even listen to someone else, especially when they're telling you what they like and don't like, then that's a you problem.
Well, let's go to our next story and see what you think about this one. Am I the a-hole for expecting my husband's daughter to care more about my baby? So my 41 husband, 59, has 2 daughters from a previous marriage. A 33 female has a son who is now 2 years old. B, 31 female, has no children. B is usually a very loving and caring person. I know for a fact she most of the time even cares way too much about others, puts them before herself to a point where it's affected her mental health in the past, so I know she is capable of being very loving. The problem started when my husband told his daughters that I was pregnant. A was excited for her child to have someone to grow up with, while B was not excited at all. She was polite, but not genuinely happy like she was when her sister told her about her pregnancy. B is somewhat a hobby photographer. She loves taking pictures and is quite good at it. When her sister was pregnant, B took a ton of pictures. When her nephew was born, she took a ton of pictures. And she takes a ton of pictures of him to this very day. When I was pregnant, she did not offer to take any pictures of me. When I asked her to do so once, she did. But she wasn't excited like she is when taking other pictures. My daughter is now 6 months old, and it seems like B does not even care a little bit about her. She does not visit us as often as she visited her dad when we weren't living together. When she visits, she is polite, but I don't see the crazy love she has for her nephew. She lives about 2 hours from her sister and also 2 hours from us. It's the same distance to both cities for her. When her nephew was born, she offered to babysit right away. She would visit her sister at least once a month and spend time with her nephew. Also give her sister a break. When her sister stopped breastfeeding, she started even taking him on outings or staying the night with him so her sister and brother-in-law could go on dates. She did not offer once to spend time with my daughter on her own. No plans on babysitting ever, it seems like. She is doing the bare minimum. She is just polite, but there is no love or deep care. Last week was a family gathering, and again, I saw all the love between B and her nephew. She gives him hugs all the time. He runs to her for comfort. She plays with him. She genuinely loves him. All she did with my baby was greet her when she arrived. She touched her foot while saying hello, and that was all the attention she gave my daughter for the whole day. Seeing the difference in how she treats my daughter, who is her sister, and her nephew broke my heart, and I finally confronted her. She got very emotional, Said she never did anything to me or my child, and I can't expect her to be happy to see my husband is capable of being a good dad, just not to her. She cried and left the gathering. We haven't heard from her since, and she is also not answering my husband's calls and texts. He is angry with me because he thinks it wasn't my place to confront his daughter. I am just so fed up. With other people, she is the most caring person I have ever met, and I want my child to experience that as well. Am I the a-hole?
We're getting some really good firsthand POV a-holes in this episode. And how they think. I think it's really important to have that perspective. OP is, I guess, stepmom to her adult children who, I don't know how long she's been in their life. Do they say how long this has happened? Have they had a rapport? They seem almost similar in age.
31 and 33. Our OP is 41.
Okay, so they're not similar in age, but they're close
10
enough.
Years, 10 to, 7 years?
So I'm imagining she hasn't been in that family's life all that long, but she's expecting ROP for the adult daughters to have the same type of emotional connection and care for her as they do each other. I think that's a little much, which you have to understand the dynamics there too. She says it very clearly that they respect and are courteous with her. Could you expect any more? Because it sounds like you're demanding love, and love is not something you can demand from anyone. You have to work on that. That takes time. It takes effort on both sides. I don't hear where she's gone out of her way for the daughters. Did you hear that in there?
I did not.
So you're only expecting it one way because you simply had a kid. There's something wrong there. If you're not willing to put into a relationship, of course you're not going to get something out of it. At the end of the day, OP, you are the a-hole. No one owes you love. But they do give you the respect, and that's a good place to start.
But she's not asking for it. She's asking for her daughter to get it.
Regardless, I still feel the same. You're an extension of your kids. Normally, the way you get treated is the way your kids get treated. If there's love in the family, it translates. But if you haven't earned it or worked for it, to expect it from others is a reflection of almost your entitlement. Just because you married into it doesn't mean they owe you those things.
So, our consensus on Reddit is that our OP is the a-hole. In fact, many individuals called her selfish and narcissistic for essentially demanding that another adult, yes, stepchild, to love your child. Now, I think for me, what sealed the deal here was when our OP said this comment in the comment section. She has told my husband some things that bothered her. These things can't be changed, and I know that she loves him a lot. She is loving to him, so why can't she love her baby sister? She is just overly emotional, overthinking things. She has anxiety as well. I feel like she is holding back her love for my baby as punishment.
Ooh.
And that to me screams that our OP is self-centered and yes, very narcissistic. That she would view her stepdaughter as trying to withhold love as punishment. To essentially dismiss how her stepdaughter feels about her husband and what he's done. I can understand if you have someone that you love very much and they treated you badly and your relationship might be good now, but to see that someone who potentially is of a similar level as you, right? Daughters, you're both daughters, and that your younger sister would be treated better than what you have growing up. I can understand that hurt. That would be devastating. The fact that she's treating our OP and her daughter with courtesy, politeness. Yeah, it might feel a little cold, but as you said, Timstradamus, you don't owe anyone love. Not like that.
I would wonder how many other things you are feeling entitled to in life without working for.
So, talking about character flaws, let's see the character flaw in this next OP. For our next story, am I the a-hole for taking my son to see a speech therapist? Am I the a-hole? Throwaway because my wife is on here sometimes. Let me preface this by saying that I love and respect my 34 male wife, 32 female. She is a great partner and mother to our son, 6 male, and I'm worried that the situation is going to make her leave me. When I was in my 20s, I studied in Australia for a year. I am from the US. While I was there, I met a fantastic woman who would later move back home with me and become my wife. My wife, let's call her Amy, has a fairly strong accent It's not something that bothers me, but equally it's not something I'm attracted to. She gets insecure about it sometimes because people comment on it a lot, but I always reassure her that I don't mind. Amy works part-time, and she is at home with our son more than I am. I don't mind working full-time to support my family, but Amy definitely ends up spending more time with him. Unfortunately, because of this, our son has developed an accent that is a combination of a normal American accent and his mother's Australian accent. It's not that I have a problem with it, but I'm worried it will negatively affect him if it's the first thing people notice about him for the rest of his life. A couple of times I have corrected his pronunciations of basic words like tomato, and Amy has taken offense to this before. Recently, I decided that the problem was getting out of hand, and I organized to see a speech therapist. Because I was worried about offending Amy, I didn't tell her about this. I told her we were spending time together doing father and son bonding activities, and she thought this was great. Well, a few weeks into our appointments, my son accidentally let slip to his mom that we had been seeing a speech therapist. Amy was furious with me and told me she needs a few days away from me to think. I told her she was overreacting, but she was too upset to think straight, and I have been spending the last couple of nights at a friend's house. I honestly do think she's overreacting. Maybe I should have told her that our son's accent was bothering me before I took him to a speech therapist, but I know she would have been upset and said no. All I want is for my son to be able to communicate clearly, and now I'm worried I could actually lose my family over this. Am I the a-hole?
No.
What?
You should definitely keep hating your wife's accent that she is now imposing onto your son through their spending time together. Of course you're an a-hole. Like you rounded about on yourself and said, maybe I should have talked to her about this first. Maybe you should have, because it bothered you quite a bit. He's gone through great lengths, making the child lie, putting it under the guise of, hey, we're spending father-son time together. But he's really taking him to a speech therapist. What? Did he think that he was going to be able to keep his child from telling this truth forever? Because the thing is, at some point, it was going to have to get out that he was taking him there. Is she not looking at the bills? Because this costs money. Nothing is free. So does she not have access to the accounts the way you do? I don't know. It's assuming too much. Maybe you have separate accounts, and maybe that's how he's able to get away with it. But honestly, if you had just communicated and talked to her about it, because unfortunately, this kind of stigma runs everywhere. I don't mind accents.
I love accents.
They're pretty. One of Voyse's nieces has an accent, and we have worked very hard to tell her, because she's almost 18, and she still has problems with how she thinks about her accent.
But her accent is lovely.
And we've made sure to tell her every step of the way that we love that and it makes her unique. Just because you have an accent doesn't mean you're less. But in his mind, he's the type of person that people with accents are scared of. So what is it exactly that bothers you for your son to have it? Is it because you think that he'll sound less intelligent? I grew up in the South. I had a very thick accent, and sometimes it'll get the better of me if I'm not careful.
I love it when it comes out.
But I only got that way because I was told by certain people when I was growing up that it was very unattractive for men to have a Southern accent, and you'd be looked down upon. So I worked on that. I think that can be very harmful for people. OP, I'm shocked that you didn't just have this conversation with your wife. Now, don't get me wrong. There are certain people that will treat you differently because you have an accent. It's disgusting. And they will think of you as less than. So I'm not going to pretend that that doesn't happen in the world. But that's a them problem, not a you problem. Basically what you told your son was, because I don't know how you explained it to him, how you got him to take these classes, but you told him he didn't sound correct. That's what I'm hearing you did. And then you're telling your wife that both of them sound less than. Can you imagine as a partner being told that by your partner? That it's so heinous that I need, because you spend so much time with our kid, I need to go take him to someone that can wash that out. Of course she needed a couple days from you, because what you just did was, and this is the worst part, and it's true what they say, betrayal is the worst feeling because you can only get that from someone you love. A stranger can't betray you. You don't feel it the same way. So you suck, OP. You suck. And I say that for everyone who's ever felt bad about their accents. You suck.
So the consensus on Reddit is our OP is a gigantic a-hole. Many individuals came out and said, depending on your region, certain words are said a certain way, and that's not bad. Tomato, baby. That actually came out with a lot of people putting in words. And in my mind, as I kept reading them both ways.
Zebra. It's all the same though.
Potato. Regardless, I had to put my opinion on this very heavily. OP is a small-minded, very ignorant little man. And how dare you make your wife feel badly for something that is uniquely her. Whether you do or don't care about her accent doesn't matter. How people talk is who they are. And when you don't accept someone for how they speak, you don't accept how they think either. That kind of goes hand in hand because our voices are who we are. That's why I love calling myself Voice on this channel. I have one, and it's a very strong one when it comes to Timstradamus and I. Sometimes our little debates outside of a camera become very passionate, and it's one of the things that I enjoy is that we have this communication. What we don't allow in each other is a disrespect for how we speak.
Yes.
Because that is a censoring that I think a lot of individuals don't really put it in the forefront. Accents for me is no different than hearing the songs on a piano. Everyone has a different way of talking, and it is very lovely. No one should feel ashamed of it, the same way as no one should feel ashamed about listening to a beautiful song. I hope that OP really thinks about the feedback that he received from individuals, because clearly, if his wife would feel anything about how I would feel if you ever did that to me, Timstradamus, you definitely weren't showing me love for who I am, if that was the case. And I can't imagine that OP's wife feels loved at all from our OP.
I can definitely agree with that. It's more just a shock because if you really had that type of problem, is it that he's ashamed that he has that problem, that he can't speak to her, right? Does he fundamentally know it's wrong, but I'll just go ahead and do this behind your back? Is that why he doesn't have that conversation?
See, for me, it comes to several points. One, he did something that he knew she would expressly not want.
Yes.
Behind her back. First, that's issue number one. The other issue is rather than actually spending time with your kid, where he can kind of pick up on how you talk, because that's what the whole crux of this entire post is. My wife spends more time with our son and therefore has picked up on how she talks. My son does not spend as much time with me. Rather than spending that time with me, I'm going to send him to someone else so that they can fix it.
That's very true.
And I keep, in my mind, I come back to, why did you not just spend more time with your son?
You can definitely feel from the wife's reaction of having to leave, right? We're not having a conversation anymore. I wonder if they've had conversations about this in the past where he's maybe brought it up, but not to the severity that he feels it. And this has just become an eye-opener for her where now she's seeing that if you hate it that much in our son, there's no way you don't hate it in me. Are you embarrassed to be with me because I have an accent? By the way, she's Australian, right?
Correct.
Their accents are amazing. What are you talking about?
I love it. I mean, I love all accents, so.
They're unique and it adds spice to life. I don't get it. People all sounding the same would be the worst.
Well, I will just end this by saying, OP, you're a disgusting individual. That might be harsh, but to try and wash away the uniqueness that is your wife and your son, I definitely don't side that.
Feed into the dingoes. I don't know.
Well, let's go on to our next story, and this one's a doozy. Am I the a-hole because I told my ex-husband outside of our kids I don't care about his life and I don't owe his fiancé anything? I'll fix the grammar later, fake names and throwaway. So my 36 female ex-husband Tom, 35 male, left me for his work wife Tammy, 25 female, 2 years ago. I never liked her even before I found out about their relationship. The first time I met her at a work event, she told me while I was heavily pregnant, my youngest, better up your wife game or I might steal him off you. Well, 3 months later, she did. This woman literally came with him to help pack the day he moved out and tried to have a one-on-one conversation on how she wanted our relationship going forward because she was going to be in my life. Then said as a joke, Told you I'd steal him away. Not gonna lie, I'm thankful she did, because when my ex made a comment about her being 23 and her brain not being fully developed, I got the ick so bad it turned my heartbreak into relief. I got everything in the divorce because I got him in his affair fog and gave 50-50 custody for our kids' sake. I'm civil for the sake of my kids, so we can both attend events without drama. But other than that, I couldn't honestly care less about them. Around June, Tammy came instead of Tom for pickup and practically skipped towards me to show off her engagement ring, saying she wanted me as a bridesmaid along with my daughters or something. I didn't catch because I was in a rush to get our cat to the vet. She got upset because I just said, her whole conversation per Tom's text a few hours later. Same happened again in September when she told me she was pregnant, which again, my zero fucks given upset her. In December, when she told me the second I opened the door, Tom's finally getting a son, to which I sarcastically replied, I'm sure Lord Tom's excited for an heir to take over his lands and titles, which caused drama too because Tom's family found it hilarious when Tammy was bad-mouthing me. December was the last time I saw her, till today, at drop-offs with Tom. As they approached me, I noticed Tammy didn't look pregnant anymore. Tammy tearfully said we lost the baby. I didn't answer, just told Tom our second daughter has a birthday party tomorrow at 3 and the oldest has gymnastics at 5. Tammy literally screamed at me. I was heartless bitch and bitter, then grabbed the girls' bags walking away. Tom said I could show a little humanity towards Tammy, and regardless of my feelings, she is my kid's stepmother. I told Tom I don't care what he's going through because outside our kids, I don't care about them and I don't owe Tammy anything, especially pity. He called me an a-hole along with other things and left. Usually this wouldn't bother me, but my ex-in-laws, who I have a good relationship with, have told me I should have shown Tammy some empathy and at the very least pretended to care for the sake of the kids. Am I the a-hole?
What a genuinely sad story. I feel for ROP and how life is kind of played out for her. It couldn't have been easy to have had a work wife at 23 because we're talking about how old are they? In their 30s, correct? There's quite an age gap.
He is 35, our OP's 36, and Tammy's 25.
25. Okay, I thought she was 23.
It's a 10-year gap.
I'm guessing their work affair probably happened
At least while she was in her early 20s.
but we're talking about someone that was in their early 20s with someone who was in their 30s. So he sounds like a great person. Good job, everyone involved, for picking him. Pick your partners wisely. That's for men and women. Learn their values, understand who they are before you jump into stuff, because otherwise you'll end up with people like him.
And Tammy's a piece of work.
Oh boy, she says a lot of nasty things to our OP throughout this entire thing, and it sounds like OP has learned how to not let other people's emotions control hers. That's a very important lesson in life to have, but to do it at the cost of yourself, to let it jade you to the point where you're unwilling to give empathy, that can be damaging. You're allowed to be that way if you want to, but there has to be something said for, if you're treating people like that, be careful, because it might get to the point where you can't turn that off. That's all I'm saying. She is allowed to have the feelings though. Just be careful.
OP is not the a-hole. They say you don't have to care about anything that happens in someone else's life, especially someone who would backstab you. And then on top of that is trying to throw things in your face. Now, let me go to an update and see what you think about this. So I texted Tom today due to Tammy's mental state. I prefer if he or his mom would do all the pickups from now on. And if Tammy's mental health gets any worse, I want the kids full time for a couple of weeks till it's a healthier environment for the kids. Tom tried to call me, but I texted him. I prefer texts. And he said he wanted to have a heart-to-heart. Yeah, not gonna happen. I asked did it involve the girls, but he said yes. But it's also about all of us going forward and the relationship he wishes for us to have. Basically, he wanted family therapy with himself, me, Tammy, and the kids. I said if he thinks the kids need to see a therapist, I would be happy to find one we both can agree on. But again, he just kept bringing it back to us. So after a few hours, Knowing it was going nowhere, I just left him on read. I called my ex-in-laws, told them the situation and how I don't want to be involved with anything Tammy and Tom unless my kids are involved. I reminded them I've expressed multiple times I don't care, and I don't want anything more than a civil co-parent relationship. I told them even though I value my friendship with the family, ex-in-laws, I will go low contact if it happens again. Mother-in-law apologized, saying she was very emotional because at the end of the day, Tom is her son and he was heartbroken, plus the baby was her grandchild, which I completely understand and I forgive her. Now here's where it gets weird. Tammy showed up to my house. Now I've watched enough true crime to know not to open the door, and I talked/recorded her by the doorbell cam. She was crying, saying she was sorry and she just wanted to be my friend. Then she said I need to forgive her because she lost her baby as karma for what she did to me. She was saying other stuff, but I couldn't understand her. I rang the police, then my brother and Tom. She didn't get arrested or anything, but Tom talked to my brother, said he was taking her home and agreed it's best if I have them full time for now. My girls are at home safe. My brother will be staying with me for the foreseeable future. I'll be seeing a lawyer first time Monday about full custody and a restraining order because I've a sinking feeling it's going to get worse. Before it gets brought up, I just kept telling Tammy, leave my property because I don't want to hear it. I don't know why I was brought into this because I was looking forward to my chill weekend. I'd like to also say for the people in my last post calling me jealous/bitter, I have nothing to be jealous of. Someone who cheats on you isn't a prize. He is Tammy's problem now. And for those of you saying, I don't give a care about my ex's life, means I'm not over him because I don't want to be friends with him or Tammy. Your ex moved on when they say leave them alone. They're not playing hard to get. They really don't want to talk to you.
I don't think she's jealous at all, by the way. I think she is correct in how she says it. She was done a favor. The guy's a clown.
Now, I will say, when I had read that update, I got a weird feeling about it because I find it very odd that someone, like an ex, would want you and his current partner and OP to go into family therapy together. It made me feel like this is trying to be almost like a forced poly relationship.
I didn't get that feeling. I thought maybe it was more like Tammy was using the husband to create the relationship that she's trying to foster with our OP. I didn't see it like a poly thing. Because there'd be no way in hell that would work, especially if you know who our OP is, because it sounds like there's no such thing as that in her life.
Oh, definitely. But let me go to our last update.
Oh, no. There's something with this whole thing?
There's something.
Oh,
but
boy.
I will preface this by saying it could potentially be triggering. I won't be updating till all the legal issues are over with and my own mental health is in a better place, so it could take anything up to 3 to 6 months. I spoke to a lawyer today. I'm obviously not going to go into details, but with all the evidence and witnesses on my side, I have a good shot at getting full custody. But it's only day 1 and nothing has started yet. Tom sexually assaulted me. It didn't go far thanks to my brother, but it's left me very shaken. I agreed to let Tom come over to visit the kids whenever he wanted. So when he came over yesterday evening and went into the garden with the kids, I went for a shower. Coming out of the bathroom, he cornered me about wanting to talk. I told him it wasn't the time and told him either go out to the girls or leave. He started saying he made a mistake. Tammy was a nut job and he wanted to come home to us. I told him, get the fuck out of my house and there is no us. So he started saying stuff I physically can't type without breaking down, then try to force a makeout session, to put it politely. Thankfully, my brother heard and came running. Unfortunately, the kids heard everything. When my brother and Tom started fighting, I was in complete shock at the time to try to do anything to help the situation. Even when Tom was being taken away, I was too scared to move and couldn't comfort my crying children. Not my proudest moment. Remember I said before I adopted older cats? That was in the comments section. Well, I put cameras through common areas in my home to watch them while I'm at work. One of those areas is the hall between my room and the bathroom. I don't know what to do with Tom going forward, but I know I can't face him ever again, even with supervision from my father or brother, who both work in law enforcement. Tammy sent hundreds of messages to me, and my oldest too, but I can't block her by my lawyer's request. My ex-in-laws have reached out and told me they'll help me with whatever way I need. His sisters have disowned him, but this is still all very new and they might change their mind. I plan on moving after everything gets sorted, so I won't ever cross Tammy's path. Thank you all for your love and support. Hopefully, I can give you all a positive update in the future. And to the young men sending messages asking for nudes and sending me pictures of your privates, thanks for the laugh, but I'm done with dick.
What a devastating update. Continue with the path you're going on. Get everything legally put down so you can have protections. Just wow.
Sometimes things escalate a lot quickly, and we don't know what's going on in other people's minds.
Tom and Tammy need to go get help.
A lot of help.
And it sounds like ROP definitely needs to go get some help now too.
Oh, hands down.
For herself. Don't be ashamed of being so shell-shocked out of the moment that you weren't able to be there for your kids. Don't hold on to that. Shock affects everyone in different ways.
I hope that OP is able to find peace, because I know that is something that they need on many levels. I hope that she can find a way to stay as far away from Tom and Tammy as possible. But at least for me, unless our OP was being belligerent, there would be no need to force a relationship between an ex and a current partner for anyone. I don't know. There's just something about that whole thing to try and force someone to, one, accepting something that they don't want to. You heard it all the way through the first post. And then in this one, there's just something that screamed weird. So when this last one came in, there was just something about it that was like,
Maybe you are correct, though. Maybe he was trying to grasp at straws to make it all still work. Because it definitely sounds like, unfortunately, when the miscarriage happened, Tammy went down.
And so did he.
There just needed to be a lot more help involved, and boundaries got crossed way worse than what I would ever have imagined with this on these updates. I don't think we've had a story escalate this way. We're talking about some pretty dangerous topics.
Well, I do wish our OP the best. And let's go to our next one. And hopefully I can bring us back. Or not. Am I the a-hole for still not forgiving my brother for sleeping with my girlfriend? I, 26 male, recently went to a family gathering for my dad's 49th birthday. But before I get into that, you need to know the backstory with me and my brother, 23 male. This event happened around 3 years ago. Back then, I was dating this girl that I will call C, 25 female. C and I were high school sweethearts. She was my everything at the time, and I thought I was hers. It was around Thanksgiving time when I found out. I was shopping for desserts for Thanksgiving after staying at a friend's house since I was helping them move. I came home and couldn't find C or her stuff. I tried calling her, but it went straight to voicemail. I tried her location, but it looked like she turned it off. I checked my front door cam, and I saw my brother helping her move her things into his car and leaving with her. I then tried to call my brother, but he wouldn't answer either. At this point, I started to freak out and assumed the worst. But then I thought my brother would never do that to me. He was honestly like my best friend when we were kids. And even though we drifted apart, kind of, when I went to college, I still considered us best friends, since we still talk and hung out from time to time. I then called my dad, and had my dad tell my mom to call my brother and put it on speaker mode. My brother answered, and when my mom asked him where C was, he said she's living with me now. She broke up with OP. I felt numb, and those words, I thought this was some type of sick joke. So I checked his Facebook and Instagram and saw them holding each other and kissing and broke down. Why was C doing this to me? Was going through my head all night. But then I was angry. How could my own brother, my best friend do this to me. I drove up to his house and banged on his door yelling at him to open up. But C was the one that opened the door. I wish I could say that I held it together, but I turned into a crying mess once I saw her. Then my brother came from his kitchen and told C to go upstairs. That's when he told me that they were having an affair ever since my second year of college and apologized to me for it. But then C came back from the stairs and said that the whole reason why she left me the way she did was because she was sick of pretending to love me. I looked at her and realized that this wasn't the person I fell in love with. That was someone else. I then wondered if this was still worth it. I then realized that it wasn't and walked out. I try to not be a problematic person and make a scene when I know what I do won't change the outcome of the situation. Don't get me wrong, I was beyond mad at her and my brother, and so cut them out of my life on the spot. Now back to the family gathering. I live in California now and am still single. The family gathering was all right until my brother and his wife walked in with a stroller. Apparently they got married and got busy. I really don't care anymore. I've been through enough therapy to know I'm not the problem. She is. My brother was trying to strike up a conversation with me, but I ignored him. Went back to the conversation I was having with one of my aunts. After a couple of hours, I forgot they were even there. But when I was heading to the basement to get some more ice cream, my brother followed me and nearly gave me a heart attack. He then awkwardly tried to apologize for what he did to me those 3 years ago. I walked past him. He didn't approach me again that night, but the next day I had gotten multiple texts from my mom telling me to just forgive my brother already. But I can't. He's the entire reason why I have trust issues now. He knew how much she meant to me and still did what he did and expected me to just be okay with it. But I don't think I'll forgive him ever in life. Am I the a-hole? Edit, fix some of my bad grammar.
Man, you just have been picking these soul-crushing stories today. OP had been in a relationship with someone, I guess, since grade school is what he's saying. They've been together for a while.
High school sweethearts.
Man. And he gets into university, and I guess in year 2 of it, his girlfriend cheats on him with his little brother.
Correct.
And he has no clue about this, I guess, for a couple years, until one day he comes home and she's just gone. I don't know why you couldn't have just
told him that you're breaking up.
Like, they're in their mid-20s at this point. You couldn't have at least given him that? I understand falling out of love with someone and not wanting to love them anymore. Hey, you're allowed that. You don't owe people relationships. But to not at least give them the closure and to just move on like adults? Why? Unless they think you're going to fly off the handle and something's going to go south, I don't know why you wouldn't give someone at least that courtesy. As his brother, how dare you? For him to have done that to you on that scale, right? Because first off, the cheating in itself is disgusting. That you have done that to your brother, but then not to have the communication with him afterwards to the point where he had to come to your home to get anything out of you. And then for him to believe that he can just wipe it away with a "I'm sorry" 3 years later. You made your decision all those years ago to not see how foul this was and to respect what your brother did, which was cut you out. Like, that for him was the best mental decision he could have made for himself. What was the other choice? To see you every day as his brother, knowing what you did? OP, you're not the a-hole for not letting them back in. It sounds like our OP has already gone through counseling and he's gotten the tools to navigate these situations. Keep your boundaries. At least you understand them now, and it looks like he's gotten help through counseling. That's a good place to start.
Well, our consensus on Reddit is that our OP is not the a-hole. In fact, let me just go ahead and read the top comment that seemed to resonate with most Redditors. Not the a-hole. You don't have a brother. You have a snake. And then that derived all the way down the line and devolved to, I'm tired of these motherfucking snakes on this motherfucking plane.
Snake is snake.
Just had to make it a little light For a lot of individuals, they were saying, look, you don't need to let them back in your life. In fact, you should probably go ahead and lay boundaries with your parents because you don't owe them anything. It doesn't matter if they're religious or not. If they're siding with allowing your cheating brother and the cheating wife that he has to go ahead and take precedence over what you feel, you don't need that either. Well, these stories is from one to the next, right? For our next one, am I the a-hole for making my girlfriend go through the bins?
You know, I thought in 2024, we can't possibly have any more drama than what we had last year. And we're probably not going to have anything else to talk about.
No, there's a plethora of things we can.
Ugh.
I, 30 male, have been dating Georgia, 26 female, for about a year now, so we decided to take the plunge and move in together. I moved into her flat because it's bigger and more convenient for me to get to work. As with moving in, we moved all my stuff over and both decided to downsize on our possessions to make the space a bit more comfortable. We've both been going through our things and throwing out stuff we don't need or look at anymore. The general rule is that if it's been more than a month and it's not been used / throw about, it goes. It's no secret to me or anyone who knows Georgia that she likes tea. Whenever we go on a trip, she likes to buy a small tea caddy or packet of loose leaf to take home with her. She has a photo album of all the teas she has drunk. It's filled with packets / photos of caddies, which are all dated and reviewed. I've seen several of her albums, and she's talked me through them. Personally, I'm happy she has a hobby, but I'm not that interested. I listen politely, and that's that. Sometimes, when one of us is working and the other has the day off, the one with the day off sorts through possessions. Georgia happened to be working last weekend, so I was tasked with clearing the flat. I found a big box in her cellar. It's not a proper one, more of a cupboard, since it's in the flat, full of tea caddies. I, not thinking, threw them out because she has photos of the caddies, which are dated. So I figured she didn't need the actual caddies anymore, as they were right at the back of the cellar. I still keep the box they were in for storage, but the caddies went into a bag and into the bins outside along with the other things. Well, today, we both went through the cellar together since I didn't get through all of it. Long story short, she picked up the box, realized it was empty, and freaked out. I tried to explain that it was an accident because she had the photos, so I thought she didn't need them, and I didn't want to bother her at work. She was really upset, understandably so, but once she learned I'd put them in the bin, she asked me to get them back since they hadn't been emptied before. I refused because I'm not going to root through bins, and we agreed to downsize on possessions. She said it didn't matter because she didn't want to throw them away in the first place and that I need to get them back. When I didn't, she decided to go into the bins and look through every single bag. She did get them back, but is now not talking to me because I made her go through them even though it was her own choice anyway. Am I the a-hole?
Oh, yeah. You found one. Let's bring the ire. Because I'm frustrated for OP's girlfriend. This entire story, he's explaining with great detail, mind you, how much and important these teas are to his girlfriend. See, at the beginning of this story, it's very nice to see through a young couple's eyes. They're making compromises for each other. They're planning things out. They're downsizing to make it all work. They're moving in together. They're doing the things you should be doing, right? So it's all good up until this point where he finds the tea box in the back of a cellar and he opens it, throws out the tea caddies, and then keeps the box. The whole point of making space is to take it all out, right? Just because you took the stuff inside of the box and threw it out, but kept the box itself, you didn't create space. All you did was throw out something important that your girlfriend really liked, and you understood that. There's no playing dumb here. So I would just wonder, because I think he feels that saying sorry absolves him from having to fix the mistake. It does not do that. That just because you make a mistake does not mean when you say sorry that you don't have to fix it, or at least try, because there are some things that you cannot fix once done. But in this case, it hasn't been done. Why would you not then go out of your way to make sure that you got back what you threw away? Because we're not talking about a landfill situation. We're talking about you knowing where it's at. Why wouldn't you have gone and dug for it? Even if it is in he says a bin, so are we talking like a full, like large garbage can where a community would put their stuff?
Yes, probably that.
You know what? You slip on some clothes you really don't mind losing, and you take a garbage bath. Because at least put forth the effort. I think most partners would do that, because everything up until that point sounded good. You guys are compromising, you're seeing life for what it is, you're downsizing for each other, but you really should have asked, especially when it doesn't belong to you. That should be the lesson you learn from this as well, is when it doesn't belong to you, ask. It's free to ask. The only thing it cost you was your annoyance and stopping what you were doing. That's where the issue came for you, is because you just didn't want to stop and wait. You could have done other things while you waited for an answer, but it impeded what you were trying to do, so you superseded the situation, threw out the items, but then kept the box.
Yeah.
What? So, OP, yes, you're an a-hole. And the worst part here is every time your girlfriend looks at something that brings her a lot of joy, she's going to also see your selfishness. I hope not. I hope I'm wrong and she can look past your inconsiderate actions and she can keep enjoying her hobby. Because the thing is, when people find a hobby and they enjoy it and they collect it and they do it on her level, it should be cherished, not something that gets tarnished because of someone's carelessness. You owe her a sincere apology. And moving forward, just ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Be considerate, because I know how important this is. I don't really have hobbies where I collect, but through Voyse, I've been able to appreciate that. She loves her teas. I get to drink them. They're fantastic. There's so many things she collects as far as that world is concerned. And if I was ever to throw out something that I didn't ask about,
Lord help you.
But vice versa, I would hate for you to have done that if I'm collecting something. And then for you to make me have to go and get it for a mistake you made. You know, I know us, if that had happened at this point in our relationship, I think we both would be dumpster diving.
I would be a trash panda to get it back.
But there's no way I would have you fix a mistake I made. Like I said, I just hope you learn from the comments and going forward, because they sound young. This was a mistake. You can learn how to be considerate with someone. Just take the lessons along the way. This one was bad, though.
Makes me kind of want to put the wiener jacket on him. But the consensus on Reddit is that our OP is definitely the a-hole. In fact, individuals were coming out and saying, this may surprise you, OP, but yeah, you are the a-hole. And it prefaced it by individuals saying, look, if you think saying I didn't know is a valid excuse, it's not. Just ask. And if you make a mistake, do something about it.
Yes.
Now, I will say, when I read the story, all I said was, oh, no, you didn't. Those tea caddies, when you're an actual collector of tea caddies, some of them are really designer, very nice looking tea caddies that you can have. Sometimes you get them in the metal tins, and some of them actually you get them like little wooden, they look like little wooden boxes. There are beautiful tea caddies out there, like collectors type tea caddies. This one really wants some of those. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge, Timstradamus. My birthday's coming up in a couple months.
Noted.
Now, for someone to throw it away without a second thought, or even to actually correct their mistake, this bothered every collector's instinct in me. It might not be important for OP, but that doesn't mean it's not important for his girlfriend. And he admits that he understands this. He actually says it inside of the comment section too, that he knows that this is important to his girlfriend. It's just not important to him. And that's fine, but it doesn't give you the excuse to throw it away or not to care, because you just showed her you don't care.
100%. You got to work on that. It's not just about what you like, especially because you're in a relationship.
Yes.
Your inconsiderateness is going to be the end of that relationship.
Hands down. And you're very right. It's something that she will probably look at her tea caddies, which is her hobby, and think, well, now I know this isn't important to my boyfriend and all that he is selfish.
I can just hope that for her, she's able to look past that and not put those two together and have that feeling. Because I know some people do feel that way. They'll start assigning feelings to certain things that they do. If it's a negative one, then they'll start pulling away from it, even if they love it. So I hope for her, she doesn't have that hobby stolen away because of his inconsiderateness.
Agreed. Well, let's go to our next story and go to a bachelorette party or an anniversary. Which one? Am I the a-hole for being upset my wife will miss our first anniversary for a bachelorette party? The woman my wife is missing our anniversary for hates me because I drove a wedge in their friendship since my wife obviously spends a large chunk of her time with me. I also see through her bullying bullshit and do not have patience for her. Anytime my wife tries to include this friend in our plans, the friend whines about nearly everything. Yesterday, she was car sick when we had to drive an hour and a half to and from the place we went as she sat in the back. She tried to solve the problem by eating potato chips and 2 cans of soda, only to keep complaining she felt sick. She was clearly hinting I should have been the one sitting in the back, but I'm recovering from an injury and the extra room in the passenger seat is helpful. She made very obnoxious digs into my home country and background to the point where I almost took the train home, leaving my wife with her friends. Living in a new country has already been exhausting. Having to hear things like that from my wife's friend wasn't pleasant. My wife didn't stand up for me against the friend, which hurts my feelings. We spoke at length last night and today about it, agreeing I would never go out with this friend again. My wife also said it was only a matter of time before the friendship ended because she couldn't deal with the negativity and self-centered attitude anymore. On to the problem. April 17th is our first anniversary. My wife is the maid of honor at her wedding and got to choose when the bachelorette party is. She chose the week of our first anniversary, meaning we would be flying home from my home country to a very private getaway. I had planned on our anniversary, and my wife would leave me that night to go to this bachelorette weekend. I'm upset because my wife knew when our anniversary was. She knows this friend doesn't like me at all, and her friend made digs and comments about my wife getting married before her. I understand my wife is between a rock and a hard place, but I'm tired of having to be understanding at the expense of my feelings over the friend. Edit. I don't know why everyone is dragging my wife. I have said several times this woman is a bully. Have you never had a friend who is clearly friends with a bully? It's a hard place to be in, especially when the bully has been their friend for nearly 20 years. I have seen my wife interact with this friend and be mentally drained continuously now. It's a toxic relationship, and those aren't things that are easy to get out of. I have been in a fair few myself, so it is not as simple as she needs to block her. Edit 2. I just had a very long discussion with my wife and explained my feelings. She is ending the friendship with the woman after the other woman in the car's birthday party in a week, so there isn't a fallout. She said her own anxiety about the situation was clouding her judgment and making me feel how I did isn't what she wants at all. I'm an action speak louder than words sort of person, so we'll see what happens. But she was heartbroken and worried I was going to start conversation with a divorce. Am I the a-hole for being upset?
And he's strictly asking if he's an a-hole for being upset that
his wife
would go on the trip.
Yeah, miss their anniversary.
And he lays this out. They're going to the destination to have their anniversary, but the day they have the actual anniversary, the reason why they're there, his wife is going to disappear off to the bachelorette party for a couple days.
Correct.
I could see how that might hurt someone.
Especially for their first anniversary.
First one is important. But there's something else along this that would hurt as well, is the fact that he says his wife was in charge of picking the date. All right, well, that's an issue. If she's in charge of picking the date for the bachelorette party, why would you pick the date of your first anniversary with your husband?
That's very true.
Because that wasn't forced. From what I understand, his wife was in charge. So are we saying that maybe she wasn't in charge and the friend in question here, the bully, was the one that forced that date? Or are we saying that his wife wanted to not be there for their first anniversary? Because it's one or the other. Or maybe it's a bit of both.
Could be a bit of both.
But I lean, now that we know more of the details and she's actually breaking things off with this friend, that maybe it had more to do with the friend bullying the OP's wife into the situation. Because the thing is, my other question for this story was, how does the wife truly feel about the friendship, right? Because I'm only hearing it from his point of view, that he sees her as controlling and I guess manipulative and bossy. I don't hear it from his wife's point of view that she feels these things until he points it out when there was a scenario where they're driving and she has choice words about where he's from. She sounds like a crappy person. And then for your wife not to defend you.
Which is something that he admits really hurt his feelings.
It would hurt anyone's feelings to have their partner sit on the sideline while their place of origin is being trashed on by what's supposed to be a best friend. Why would you entertain that in your life? I don't care how long you guys have been friends. That's toxic behavior. That's bullying. Yes, he is correct. That is a bully. And it sounds like he's tried to kind of maneuver around this relationship with his wife. I mean, there's only so much you can take, though. I would just hope that this is your wife's choice in all of this and not yours. That's where I get kind of skeezed out because I'm not getting the full angle from the wife. I'm only getting it from his, and things can look different depending on the seat you sit in. So hopefully this is her choice to cut off that friendship and not you forcing her into not having this friendship. Even if it is destructive, by you doing that, you become the villain too. Because she'll look later on and go, you forced me to end a relationship that I held with value. OP, for me, I don't believe you'd be the a-hole for having your feelings over this situation.
So, the consensus on Reddit is our OP is not the a-hole. Many individuals said, wait, your wife chose and decided the week of your anniversary to go ahead and do this bachelorette party.
Does she not want to spend time with you? But that's a weird thing in my head is if she really did choose it or did she get bullied into it?
And this is why I think a lot of Redditors dragged his wife through the ringer because in the end she chose this. At least that's our perception until he provided clarity that she's being bullied. Now, I do have an update.
Ooh.
So let me go ahead and read to you the update.
Goosebumps.
There were many discussions and disagreements leading up to her ending the friendship. Things would grate at me that my wife was still going along with the friendship for the sake of her other friend in their friendship triangle's birthday party. Every day, it was like I was more annoyed because she still hadn't even defended me to the friend, and it was showing she cared less about me and how I felt in her country when she knows how much I miss mine. She knew she needed to end it anyway and said losing our relationship wasn't an option. After a bit of prying, it was clear how psychotic she thinks her friend is. My wife believes her friend will key her car, show up to the house and cause problems, drag all the other friends involved into it. It all came to a head when I told her I was not returning to her country from mine. We're back in mine for a Christmas thing with my family, if the friendship was still intact. She ended the friendship 2 days later after the friend called me racist towards the very large white 85% plus majority of her country. I am white. As expected, the friend has started to go off the rails. So far, it's been excessive phone calls, texts. The friend tried to text me and apologize for her comments to salvage anything with my wife, but I had changed my number a week prior. The apology was something along the lines of, sorry if what I said hurt your feelings, but your words hurt mine. What I said had just pointed out my frustration with lived experiences from the new country every day. Friendship is over. Wife is worried ex-friend will key her car. She is genuinely fearful of this ex-friend. We will be installing another camera as soon as we get home that only points to her car. I doubt this is the last update, and we actually booked a vacation for our first anniversary.
I only don't like in the update where he goes, either you're dumping her as a friend or I'm not coming back from my home country. You giving that type of ultimatum. That's why I was very careful with how I worded this. Is she leaving the friend because she wants to, or is she leaving her because you're forcing it?
It's so mixed, at least based on how I feel. I can understand it if someone tends to be more of a meek person and a bit of a pushover, that they might need that little nudge. But you're right. I also don't like the ultimatum. It needs to be their choice at the end.
Choice is important.
But I have another update, so let's go into that one.
Okay.
My wife had an exchange of bachelorette party information with the new maid of honor at a cafe. The new maid of honor and her are old friends. She knew exactly why my wife was doing what she did in ending the friendship. The ex-friend made a request through the maid of honor that she wanted my wife to delete all the pictures and videos of her from her phone. It was a bit of a head scratcher with how paranoid the ex-friend is, because my wife would never even think to do anything negatively with them. It makes me think what the ex-friend would do to all of my wife's images and videos from over the years if she's thinking my wife would ever do anything with hers. It just seems like another odd bit of controlling behavior. The only real annoyance, other than that, is I've had to spend out of pocket $500 for my wife's dress, makeup, hair that was paid for already. The dress was $40. She hasn't had hair and makeup done, and someone has already filled her slot as the missing bridesmaid. My wife spent $400 on the hotel room we won't get to use for the wedding days, nearly $1,000 out of pocket. Worth it though. The biggest upside has been my wife is much more relaxed over the last month. She doesn't get sucked into drama via text when looking at her phone now. She isn't on Snapchat having to hear the ex-friend talk horribly about her friends, her fiancé, etc., so the messages disappear. I have always said to her the way she talks about all those others to you, she is talking right back to them the same way about you. We've been enjoying the last month plus of peace and quiet and hope it stays that way. I likely won't have any further updates unless something actually happens.
And he is 100% correct. When you have people who like to talk crap about other people or gossip or do things with you, normally those people also turn around and do that about you to other people as well. They don't just stop at you. So
They don't?
Yeah. You're no better than the company you keep.
Well, let's go on to another relationship and see how this one works. Am I the a-hole for telling my sister that I will prioritize my husband above her? Sorry about my English. Recently, my daughter, 7 female, had a health scare that required her to stay in the hospital for 5 days for tests. Fortunately, it was something smaller and not as scary as we feared. My daughter needed an adult to stay with her all day/night at the hospital. Only one visitor at a time in the room from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. My husband can't be with my daughter all day because his job demands a lot, and we have our other son to take care of, 12 male. So we decided that I would be with our daughter all day. During his lunch hour, he stayed with us from 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. My sister and I are close. She is my daughter's godmother, and I have no doubt about her love for my daughter. She and my husband have their disagreements, and not that close, but nothing major. When my sister heard the news, she sent a message saying that she would like to help me stay with my niece, and I said that I didn't need it. She asked about if she could visit during her lunch, which coincides with my husband's schedule. I said that this time my husband comes to see us, but that she would be welcome at any time. She said she couldn't do it at a different time, as she had to work, and asked if she and my husband could alternate a few days. I asked my husband about this, and he made it very clear that this is the only time he can and wouldn't give up, especially at such a stressful time. At the time, we didn't know it was something minor. I responded to my sister saying that unfortunately this schedule wouldn't work because my husband, but that she was welcome at any other time. She said that we were being unfair because she would also like to see her goddaughter at this delicate moment, and it wouldn't hurt to give her a little time, and she mentioned that maybe he would think different if it were anyone else. I was honest here, saying that this wasn't about her, and that I would give preference to my husband when visiting. But she is free to go at other times, but if that's not possible, she will have to respect that my husband comes first. She was not happy and said that we could compromise on her spending some time with my daughter, but we decided to be selfish and not realize that other people who also loved my daughter very much would like to have time to see her. In the end, She managed to leave work early one day and stayed with us for 30 minutes. But to this day, 1 week later, she is still upset and avoiding long conversations with me. Am I the a-hole? Extra. Other people, my mother-in-law, also wanted to visit at this time, but they understood why this time was not available and went to other times. She was the only one who got angry. Am I the a-hole?
There's a reason why she's the only one that got angry. I can understand wanting to be there for family, but when you're talking about the parents, they come first, especially when it comes to their child. And sometimes as a person, you need to stop making things about yourself. She says this. They're making these decisions in the moment and not knowing if this is a life-threatening situation that they're in. Why couldn't you have understood that that's what that was? Why did it have to be where you're pushing your way and to the point where your sister has to defend the fact that you and your husband are trying to be there as much as they possibly can be for their daughter? Why did you have to push it to that level and then to hold on to it? Because you're selfish and it had to be about you. Be there when you can be. Look what ended up happening. You made time, correct? She went when she could. I hope people were able to give her peace of mind on this because it sounds like she was torn about how it should have went down. Understand that when it comes to health and your children, you, your husband, are the only things that matter in that moment. And your child. Obviously your child.
Yes.
But if it was something serious, let's say for sake of argument, something serious did happen to their daughter and her sister was fighting for this time to be there and she did get it and something happened to their daughter. What happens after that?
Guilt.
I am happy that you were able to set the boundaries and you stuck with it. Sometimes people need to be, even if it's tough love, shown that boundaries do exist and they have to be respected. So yeah, OP, you're not the a-hole.
So the consensus on Reddit is that our OP is not the a-hole. And let me read to you 2 comments that really summarizes 1, the reason why our OP is not the a-hole, and 2, a different viewpoint on how you can spend time with family. First comment says, not the a-hole. Sounds like she likes testing your loyalties where your husband is concerned. She is the a-hole 100%. 1, parents will always trump other family members in situations like these. It's your child. 2, your daughter should be everyone's priority. I'm sure she loves her aunt, but most kids just want their mom and dad close when they're unwell, in a new environment, emotional times. You are the 2 people she trusts the most in the world. 3, she made time in the end, so she had alternatives. Your husband didn't. She wanted the lunchtime because it was more convenient to her schedule. How selfish and entitled do you have to be to demand parents going through a super scary and stressful time make time for you? Now, for the additional comment, it was in response to this one, and it goes, also, I don't understand why everyone immediately wants to go to the hospital. There's so many other things where help are needed and surely appreciated if you've got a child in a hospital. If you actually want to support, for example, cooking and bringing meals to the family, sure, the dad has other priorities than cooking a great meal for himself and his son with work and visiting the daughter during lunch break. Or if allowed to also bring good food to the parent and child in the hospital without expecting to see the child or being entertained. Helping in the household like cleaning, etc. while parents are gone. This is especially helpful for longer stays. And provide childcare for the sibling. It's currently a scary time for them as well, and currently they're not in focus. So doing something with just them and providing entertainment or support, doing the school run, helping with homework, or bringing them to friends or extracurriculars. I feel like the aunt is creating drama instead of actually helping.
Or she could have just gotten on FaceTime. There's other ways of doing this. But they are 100% correct. There's ways to help people who are going through stuff that don't involve you putting yourself in the middle of it and making it about you.
And I think that's where a lot of commenters stem back to. This aunt was trying to make it about her, essentially trying to push one parent that she doesn't agree with out, and that's not the right way to go about it. If you're not letting it go because you don't understand the boundaries of what it means to be an aunt versus the parent, that's tough luck. Well, let's go on to our last AITA story. Am I the a-hole for breaking my ex when I come out as lesbian? I have been with my ex, Alex, fake name because he is here on Reddit too, for 3 years, and it was always difficult to say the least. I have always been bi and thought that I liked males and females for almost all my life until 2 years ago. My parents always accepted my diversity and gave me the max support by the beginning. When I met Alex, I told him about my sexuality and he was fine. For 2 years, our relationship was great. We had many things in common, many interests, hobbies, and we were going to the same gym. Gym part is important. Alex was one of those super romantic guys that believes in the charming prince, eternal love, super sweet, and always made me feel special and unique, and I loved him for that. But then something in me changed in the last year of our relationship. After 6 months, I understood that I was attracted to women and not to guys, but always feared Alex's reaction to this and my parents too. So for 6 months, I tried to avoid intimacy with Alex using some excuses, but decided to tell this to my parents, and they accepted it immediately, telling me that they love me for how I am and that my sexuality is fine, how I feel it, and it was a big relief for me. But then they asked me if I told this to Alex too, and I told them no. So following their advice, after a week, I finally took the courage to tell him. So after work, he was supposed to come to my house to have a talk, and for 2 hours before his arrival, I was rehearsing the best speech to say this nicely that I could, but things went in the complete opposite way. When he arrived, the worst happened. I basically told him that the lack of our intimacy was because I finally understood that I'm lesbian and not bi. He was in shock and didn't say anything for 1 hour while I was talking and became pale. After I finished, he just asked me, "There is a woman yet that you like and hang out with?" I replied honestly and told him that there is a girl in our gym that I feel attracted to, but didn't talk with her yet. His response left me shocked. "Of course you didn't, and I'm stupid, right?" And then he left. After 1 hour of me crying and asking myself what I did wrong, because I tried to be more gentle and nicer that I could, I tried to text him, but he blocked my number and my account on my social. He cut me out completely in 1 hour, leaving me in shock and disbelief. Some months later, I met our mutual friends, and when I asked them if they knew something about Alex, they told me that he never replied to any of their texts and calls for months and stopped to hang out with them. I can understand the shock, and his reaction was justified because it's a big thing, but ignoring even our mutual friends, no. Finally, I saw him at our gym, and I was dating the girl that I liked, and when I tried to get near to him to have a talk, he completely ignored me, like I was invisible, and continued to work out. So we come to a week ago when I met him again, but this time he was extremely changed. He was like another person, extremely jacked and fit, long beard, but again ignoring me, so I decided to have a serious talk with him. I cornered him at the gym and decided to have a serious talk, but he didn't even listen to me while I was talking and was watching around until he said, "Listen, do me a favor and don't talk to me again. I stopped dating after you because you broke something in me, and I can't and would never stop to blame you for this, but it's all your fault. I can't trust women anymore because I always fear the delusion and that they will hurt me again like you did." And then he walked away. I cried a lot that day because I can't understand how it's my fault. I mean, it was already difficult for me to accept myself and my sexuality, and I tried to be more nicer and gentler that I could with him, but from the anger in his voice, it felt like I insulted him or said something extremely bad when I didn't. It's true that he never dated again after me, but I can't stop asking myself if it's really my fault or not. Watching him changing so much really hurt me. After 1 year of our breakup, he unblocked me on social, and watching his transformation is something unbelievable. I mean, his Instagram account was all about love, compassion, sweetness, dog pics, and all this nice things. But now it's just about don't trust anyone, against everything, always sad and depressed photos. So it's my fault to breaking him? Should I feel this way? Edit. I can't believe it. He just canceled his Reddit. What the fuck did I do wrong? I was talking with him without saying nothing bad and he just canceled his profile. Why? Am I the a-hole?
You are an extreme a-hole. Not for coming out. You're an a-hole because your persistence to not letting him go. Because I don't see in this thing where he pursued you after the breakup happened. She says he let her speak for an hour without saying anything. But he didn't interrupt you. He let you get out what you needed to. Your parents, they gave you great advice. The second you figured out that, hey, the banana don't work, you should have told him 6 months earlier. Because I think she says she held on to it for 6 months.
Correct.
Why? Because you could have done a lot more damage to what we're seeing here with the ex, right? I think had you just been honest about it, and you were, you took a little longer than you should. And I understand you said it was because you were afraid of him. All right, that's fair enough. But after the breakup happened, after he cut you off, because what were you expecting him to do? How old are these guys? Are we talking about 20-year-olds? Talking about 30-year-olds? They sound young.
Doesn't say.
Okay. I guess regardless of your age, if you're 20, 30, and someone breaks up with you, what were you expecting them to do? That it was just supposed to be a good time? And yes, maybe him jumping to the conclusion that, because he already knew, he had someone in his mind going, because the old adage is, when you break up with someone, normally there's already someone on the other side that you're breaking up with them for. I don't blame people for having that conclusion on things, because sometimes that is true. And other times it's just because they're ready to move on, like the OP was, right? She figured it out. She's lesbian. Okay, cool. But once you figured that out, you should have been okay with the reaction that you were going to get, outside of it being violent or toxic. Because that's not what I got from this. I got, okay, someone got broken up with. Of course they're not going to be happy about it. He left. He didn't break things. He said one choice comment about how he believed that she already had moved on. You're allowed to be human. He storms out, he leaves it, and he blocks her. Okay. Are you owed anything after that? Because see, in one of these other stories you gave me, someone completely just left without having said anything to their partner. At least here there was closure. We knew that there was a start and a finish. At least you gave him that. So you did right up until that point. Everything outside of the 6 months thing. Up until that point, I'm with you. Where I stopped being with you is when you started almost, and I'm not saying it's an obsessive, like stalkerish type situation, but you pursued him. You're constantly coming after him to make yourself feel better about the situation. It wasn't to make him feel better. It was because you needed to feel better about how you made him feel. That's wrong. What you should have done is accepted that that's how that relationship ended and that there was nothing else coming from it. You did a disservice because on the second half of this story, you're like, I cornered him at the gym. When would you ever corner someone and get something good out of it?
Never.
That's dangerous. You're telling me you were afraid to break up with him, but now you're going out of your way to corner him? Again, it just leads me back to believing you're only seeking this because you're trying to make yourself feel better about what happened. You did nothing wrong. That's the truth. Maybe you're holding on to it a little too hard, but you can't make everyone happy. You gave him your truth. He reacted like a human. That's how it works. OP, you're not responsible for how he acts in life. Him going on that path that he's on right now, man, that's just what a lot of people go through when they get broken up with. Maybe you were his first breakup. I don't know. Maybe this was the first person that he trusted on the same level. It happens. We go through it. We learn. We grow. But to solely blame yourself for how his life trajectory is turning out, no, don't do that. But you are definitely the a-hole for the constant pursuing of him. And yes, maybe you deem the way he did is destructive and different, but everyone goes on their life paths. You don't get to choose what they do.
The consensus on Reddit was that our OP is definitely the a-hole. Not the a-hole for finding themselves, but our OP is the a-hole for chasing down their ex that wants nothing to do with them, for trying to have the ex confirm or validate the reasons as to why she broke up for them, and for overall just being selfish. Every Redditor was saying Just leave the poor man alone. Everyone goes through heartbreak in different ways, and oftentimes that will change you as a person. But the best way to heal is to no longer be around the person who broke your heart. OP is only hurting her ex by wanting this weird validation and weaponizing, and using this kind of heartbreak against him is so wrong. Other Redditors actually came out saying, it feels, OP, like you're trying to right yourself as a victim. You refuse to be honest with your feelings. For 6 months after you found out, you told your parents, and the only reason why you told your boyfriend and broke up with them is because your parents told you to.
Yep.
Which gave a lot of people the feeling that you probably wouldn't have even told him. You essentially told all of the internet that you stopped being
intimate
for a year. As a man or a woman, when you stop being intimate with your partner, that could be detrimental to a relationship. A lot of individuals were saying they can imagine that he's probably trying to work on this relationship, thinking that there's something wrong with him. And you find out the answer as to why. Don't tell him for half as long as you found out. And yeah, his reaction's not going to be the best. Leave it alone.
I mean, as far as the breakup spectrum is concerned, his reaction was what you'd hope for. Most of the time,
violent.
It wasn't violent. I didn't hear yelling. Yeah, all right, he had the little comment to say at the end, but he left after that. We're not talking about the other side. But what were you expecting? That you guys were going to just shake, hug, and he was going to be okay? That's not how the human heart works.
And I hope that this gentleman, wherever he is out there, he finds himself in a positive way. And if anything, his outlet on social media, it's probably just that, an outlet. I hope he comes to terms with that the relationship is done and finds himself someone that is good for him. My opinions on OP, I agree with all of Redditors and with you, Timstradamus. If anything, my reaction is probably a little harsher because it feels like that person that tries to reopen a wound that is just trying to heal over and over again and is not allowing her ex any moment of peace to actually move on. She doesn't need to be on a social media and seeing what he's posting. She doesn't even need to be on this Reddit, but she's aware of it. And that's where I come back to. At the very end, when she says, I can't believe it, he just canceled his Reddit account. Why are you looking at what your ex is doing, knowing that you are posting something that he can see, unless you are trying to harm him mentally and emotionally? And for me, that smacks of someone who's not only selfish, but is manipulative. And I will call it for what it is, because that is disgusting.
I can second that. I just hope he finds the space to heal properly. Inside. Outside's good, but it starts here. You got to fix that first.
Well, all of these stories were extremely heavy and got us talking about a lot of things. We touched on a lot of subjects today.
Oh, definitely.
So for our very last story, I wanted us to end on a happier note.
Oh?
So I'm going into Today I Fucked Up forum for our last story. Today I fucked up by wearing an inappropriate shirt to family dinner. This happened a few Thanksgivings ago. I found this really awesome shirt thrift shopping that said, "Take me home and feed me." It's a black shirt. Most of the letters are white, but some are a darker gray. What do I know about design? It's talking about food. I thought, oh, that's so perfect for Thanksgiving dinner coming up. So I buy the shirt for this purpose. Fast forward a few days, and I'm celebrating Thanksgiving with all the extended family. It's evening. We've all had dinner, and the pies are starting to come out. My older brother pulls me into the kitchen for a quick word. Hey man, what's with the shirt? Interesting choice for family dinner. I ask him what he's talking about. I thought it was a fun Thanksgiving shirt. It clearly references food. Realizing I don't know what's going on, he starts to laugh. He pulls in one of the older cousins similar in age to him. They both start laughing. Turns out the dark gray letters are the EED on feed. The shirt is designed so that from a distance, you guessed it, it says, "Take me home and F me." You all, I wore that shirt all day. I wore that shirt for family photos. I am standing next to my sweet grandma with a shirt that says, "Take me home and F me." These photos will live forever on her Facebook.
That's hilarious. Poor Mima. She probably doesn't even know, though.
She was all like, "Oh, I'm so glad you're getting fed."
What a fun memory. The pictures should be fun to laugh about down the road. Sounds like everyone has a good sense of humor. That's perfect cringe. So was that our last story?
That was our last story.
That was a really good one to end us off with.
We had some serious topics today. I had to bring us back for the end of it.
Oh, yeah. Very intriguing, though. Well, as our stories come to a close, don't forget, you've seen the world what you carry in your heart.
If you have enjoyed listening to us read and talk about today's stories, please rate, subscribe, and turn on notifications for new content. We regularly post on Mondays. We also post on Wednesdays on Patreon our Damas After Dark episodes. And we would love to give all of our thanks and appreciation to our Teatreons.
Yes, we love and appreciate every single one of you teabags. As always, listeners, we look forward to hearing your opinions in the comments below. What did you think about the stories today? And remember, if you post it, maybe we'll see it on the internet.
I want some Taco Bell.
Ew.
Aw, Mexican pizza though.